of 2 community stalwarts that we have lost in the last month. Dr. Malcolm McPherson, who was previously the CODC mayor, and a real champion for, in particular, central stories in the Alexandra District Museum, and also Cliff Brunton, who was the former deputy mayor of Vincent County Council before our time, and for the last 2 years, our dear neighbour and friend. So just an acknowledgement for those 2 who've gone before us. We have got a lovely public gallery this morning, which is very exciting. A couple of different people coming to speak to Vincent Community Board. And first up, Sally, Joe and Chris about the hockey turf. Welcome. Come on, grab a seat if you like. Yeah, just come to this. Yeah, perfect. You can have a sit if you like.
Well, that's then on the end. Is there enough distance between us?
That's special, yeah.
Not too far here. Yeah. Well, I'm Sally, and we're quite excited. We've sort of reinvented ourselves, and we've got a new direction that we're heading with the Molyneux Turf Incorporated. So we have listened, and we have taken on board. We have talked to different people about different services, different uses of the turf, and I think we're quite excited with where we've come up with now. Taking a step back, the reason that we are looking at a surface is because the one Pioneer Park is not fit for purpose for hockey. We've got 45% of the hockey players in the area here. We had Rachel Minton-Smith from Hockey New Zealand came down, and she stood on it, and the kids were wanting to hit the ball around with her, and she said then it's not fit for purpose. So we're really keen to get a multi-purpose surface in the area that will accommodate the hockey, but it will also accommodate a lot of other sports. And as some of you may know, we've been looking at this for a few years, and I think in one way it's been a good thing it's taken so long, because now there's a lot of new surfaces that have been created, and Hockey New Zealand have changed their whole philosophy on hockey turfs, and they are looking more in a direction for something for everybody, opening up the game to the whole community. So they're looking at multi-purpose surfaces. So we're not looking to compete with Cromwell, because that is the gold standard hockey surface, and that will always be the home of hockey in Central Otago. So what we're looking at is more a multi-purpose one that the schools can use, the different sports that we've got up there can use. But with the new developments now with the turfs, we can play hockey up to a national level on these surfaces, which is quite exciting. The other advantage of these surfaces is the cost. They're not as expensive as a water turf. They last a lot longer. Water turf, you've got to resurface every 10 years and then put a new base every 20 years. So you're looking at probably about 1.5 million to keep it going. These multi-purpose surfaces, they have a lifespan of about 20 years, and the upkeep is a lot less if they're maintained. So I think that's all. We've applied for a feasibility study. We've got a brand new, well, not a brand new committee, but lots of new people that have come on, jumped on board because they see this is quite exciting. And really, we just want the community on board and look at how we can take this further, get the different groups on board.
Yeah, what about the proposal of the 3-road?
Yeah, well, that's what, with the community on board, the school on board, the Vincent community on board, we want to get everybody together in a room and basically say, look, what can you bring to this project? What are your ideas? Where would you think? We looked at the school was in support, the high school, and we see that as a really good fit because we can utilise it during the day with the structured lessons, recreation at lunchtime, interval, and we've got an area. There are areas within the school that a turf can go that won't affect any buildings or anything that are already deemed by the Ministry of Education as for recreation. So that's a good fit. There's lots of other organisations. Junior Cricket have come on, said, yeah, we can. We put all our little cricketers on the turf. It means that you don't have that dewy morning where the ball doesn't go anywhere. The girls smash, lots of success because the ball travels a lot. So there are different community groups that are interested. So it's a case of us getting everyone together and see what everyone can bring to the table, really.
What's your sort of ETA for a feasibility study, and what will that cover?
That will come as soon as possible, just as soon as we can guarantee the funding for it. And I guess ultimately it will just come up with a strategy, and it will cover, I think we'll cover different options. So at the moment, our preferred option that we think we'll go towards would be a three-way arrangement between Dunstan High School Council and the TÜV committee. That's correct. There are, yeah. But it would probably put together an alternative option as well, just to weigh up what's going to work best.
And that'll cover all those other sport aspects and the
That's
sport
right.
use.
Yeah, there's research behind that. They'll do all the hard work.
Yeah.
They're the experts, you know. So that application's going in very soon, yeah, and within this week. Okay.
Has anybody got any other questions?
Just going to say, great work. It was only a couple of months ago after one of these meetings that we were discussing how slippery it was for the little kids playing in the
Thank you for
weekends.
acknowledging that. Yeah.
So you did, we're doing great work, mate. So thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much for the update.
Thanks. Thank you. Are we like to leave?
You can leave it. Thanks. All right, and speaking to grant applications for today, first up we have Andy Davey from Alexandra District. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, we provided quite a lot of information in our application for funding for this year. I hope you've had a chance to read the excellent reports by Paula, Operations Manager, and Board Chair Graham Preston. They've explained probably better than I could the excellent work that has happened in the last 12 months at Central Stories and re-engaging with the community through lots of different events and partnership with lots of different groups as well. So since last year, Paul has been now taken on as a full-time operations manager, were previous part-time. I don't think that means she works any more hours, because she was always working way beyond the hours paid for. And also my appointment was done by the board as a contract administrator, so looking after accounts, funding applications, and other projects such as the eHive project and other data projects that we're doing. So that's our structure now, full-time operations manager and myself, and that's only possible with the generous support of the Vincent Community Board, and thank you very much for that. But my responsibility is also to find funds from other funding providers, such as Lotteries, Henderson Fund have been very generous benefactors to us, and some project-specific funding, such as from Central Lakes Trust and other providers. So that requires quite a bit of time. Our application was for the full figure, so we were fully funded. But that figure that we hope we can have confidence in is what we've budgeted to be able to do the structure that we've got. But I'd also like to put on the table that there is extra support beyond that immediate financial thing that we can work together on. One of them is the Learning Hub part, which was part of Central Otago Polytech there's all computers, which was occasionally used. Now, since that's moved, we use that space already in cooperation with REAP and Otago Museum and Winterstellar. And there's talk about library and CMC. So we'd like that area brought under the operations control of the museum. So, and we will use it for them community type events, but when it's not used for that, it can be a space that we can use as a hands-on place for kids, etc., to engage with some of the artifacts that we've got and so on. And one other area that you might be able to help us with is to our energy costs are about 10,000 a year. I think as part of the lease, which we've discovered is there's a commitment from CODC to change our lighting to LED. I'd like to suggest that we can take that project a little bit further and install solar on our roof. We've got two big north-facing or three big north-facing banks on our roof, and I think it would be a project that you guys could drive, and we could get solar into there, and it will tick off your boxes for the carbon zero as well. So I'd like to have a conversation with that in the future, and that will save us power, etc. And also part of the lease, I think we've only got 6 months notice. When people are committing their time and their future at the sacrifice of other potential earnings, it would be nice to know that we have a bit more security of tenure within the building there. So it'd be good if as some part of engagement can help us with that. So yeah, we've not come to you in crisis. We've come to you on the back of a lot of progress, and we'd just like to continue that, and with your support we can do that. So if there's any questions.
Wonderful, thank you, Andy. Does anybody have any questions at this point?
Do you have any thoughts on the cost of installing a solar system on that size building that would provide a useful reserve for the single stories building, inclusive of the actual energy storage, i.e. batteries?
No, no. That is why I'd like it to be driven by council, because we don't have the expertise. It'd be interesting to learn it and to be able to give the solutions on that. But I think it will be something that you guys can take responsibility for that.
Thank you. I'd just like to acknowledge the positivity of the application, which was very much enjoyed, and also the really great work that Paula has been doing over the last 12 months, and in particular her ability to engage 10 4-year-olds. You can engage for an extended period of time. And hats off to you, Paula. It's been really neat to see the relationships that have been built with the preschools and the primary schools in our area, and there's been a lot happening there for kids, which is great to see. So thank you.
Yeah, it is a place for the community, and it's something that we need to continue to encourage. We haven't finished yet.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. And welcome, Tracy.
Thank you. Kia ora koutou, or Tracy Richmond people ingoa. Good morning, my name's Tracy Richmond, and I'm here on behalf of the Dunstan Kahuiako, which is 9 of our local schools and 8 of our preschools who work collaboratively together on projects. And I lead that group of people, and we have under our care about 1,500 students in our area. And today I'm seeking some funding support for an event that we're going to be holding in October, November. It's a festival of the arts, and one component of that festival is a visual arts exhibition. There's also going to be a performing arts exhibition and some workshops, hands-on workshops for students. So the application that I'm making is for funding to support our schools within the Vincent area to travel to the art exhibition and view the works that are going to be on display. And I'm seeking $2,660 to support those students. Works out about $8.95 per student. So if you have any questions about our application, I'd be happy to answer them.
Did you have a question?
Yeah, I said one. So in the recommendation that we've got, just mentions about making sure that we're satisfied this is not part of the core curriculum. So I just thought I would ask you that. Is this?
And that's a factor for many funding applications. So the work that the students are doing in the school is obviously core curriculum, but the bringing it together in an exhibition is not core curriculum, because that's work that schools wouldn't normally do. And the fact that the Kahuiako can organise that and arrange it for schools is how it is different from core curriculum. So it's a celebration of students' work and a sharing of students' work with not only their families but the wider community. Yeah, thank you.
If you didn't get the funding, how many of the students would be unable to attend?
So we've been successful in seeking funding for St John's School at Maniatoto through the Maniatoto Community Board. So they've supplied $1,100. And on Thursday, I'm going to be speaking to the Teviot Board, because we've got so it's the schools that would be involved are Clyde, Omaka and Fulburn. Clyde has 177, Omaka has 73 and Fulburn has 46. So yeah.
Yeah, but how many of them, in the absence of funding, would be unable to actually?
I suspect all of them, because the schools haven't got a budget for transporting students into Alexandra. Yeah.
And it's not something that the parents would help with?
Well, I guess schools could approach parents, but many of the schools are under a donation scheme now, which means that parents don't have to contribute to the cost. So it then falls back on the school. And if they haven't budgeted for it, it's unlikely that they're going to be able to find that funding.
Okay.
Yeah, of course.
I was just going to say, to expand, so a lot of schools now in this area operate under a system where where parents can't ask for a donation because the money's out comes from government. So if it doesn't involve staying overnight somewhere, a school can't charge for it. So most schools, I imagine here now, wouldn't actually be able to go to the parents and say, can you please help cover the transport cost because of the government funding.
And that funding obviously comes in January, and schools will have known how much that was and have budgeted that for other events that they often doesn't meet anywhere near what the costs are involved in running events for students over the year. Yeah, so it's a tight one.
Oh, thank you very much, Tracy.
Thank you.
Speak to you.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sorry, I did skip ahead there, Sarah, and there's not yet done the apologies. So today I have apologies from Martin and Tracy, please. Are you happy to move those? Thank you, Roger. And second, Tony. Those in favour? Yes, carried. Now we move to page number 7. Minutes from the previous meeting, which was all the way back on 12th of June. I am happy to move that those are true and accurate. Jaden is happy to second those. Thank you. All those in favour? Yes, carried. Then have our declarations of interest on page 14. And just a reminder to keep an eye on those and add or remove anything that is no longer applicable. Jaden.
So I have notified Sarah to remove the Alexandra District Youth Trust, which I left 3 and a bit months ago. I just hadn't done quick enough for this meeting.
Thank you. Wonderful, thank you, Sarah. And then we move to page number 18, which also ties to your other agenda item that has all the applicable grants. Welcome, Rebecca, to talk us through the community and promotions grant. Thank you, Anne.
Not true.
It's early in the morning today.
I'm just avoiding a plate down.
Good idea. And then,
Yeah. Hi. Thank you. I'll talk about community grants and then hand over to Ali to talk about promotions grants. So, this is the first round of the 23-24 financial year. And we have received, so we've got a total of $120,000 to distribute over the entire financial year. Any money that's not allocated today will be set aside for the second round, which is closing date in March for you to consider in May next year. This round we've received 5 applications requesting a total of $188,192.61. We've provided a couple of things for governance to help with your decision making today. One is the decision making, which I think you've got a hard copy of the table, just so that as you adjust figures, we can put that in the table and see what that looks like in terms of your total budget to allocate. And the second thing we've drafted is a draft resolution for when we get to that stage, once you've figured out the numbers. I've just got a couple of things for specific applications. First with ADMI, I just want to acknowledge the passing of Malcolm McPherson and the tremendous contribution that he gave not only council but that institution sadly missed. So ADMI in their application, they've requested an increase to 167,000, which is an increase of 85,000. They note that that would be the amount that would be required if the VCB were to fully fund the operations of the Museum and Art Gallery. I've based my recommendation on last year's contribution, which was 82,000 due to the grant pool remaining the same and not having an increase. The Alexandrian District Youth Trust have requested an increase of 7,000 to 13,000. That increase isn't unreasonable. They've received the same level of funding from the board for 11 years. But again, my recommendation is based on last year due to the grant pot not having grown, and so it would be a bigger slice of the same pie. Upcycles is a new application and it's a new service. It's a relatively new service. The quest is for parts and equipment to set up. The gentleman, Chris, was very keen to talk, but he's giving a presentation in Invercargill today, so he couldn't participate either remotely or in person. But he did have some additional documentation that he would like to talk to, which I included in the supporting documentation that you've all received. So you have that presentation from him. And finally, it's just to talk about the application from the Kahuiako. So, and I have recommended that that is declined. Last year they applied to the council because it was for all of the, it was for the Ramfurly kids, the TV kids and the out of Alexandria Vincent kids. It went to council because of that cross nature of it. Council agreed to fund it. It was it was a borderline application for that, but the thing that one of the things that got it over the line was it was for the introduction of the New Zealand history curriculum. So it was a new thing that wouldn't set a precedent. I think this year's application is not dissimilar to many activities that happen in schools, and that if you fund kids travelling to an event such as this, then you should expect many and often future applications. Again, the decision is with you, but that was my reason for decline. It's and that's all I have to say. That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Rebecca. So promotion grants slightly different to community grants in that we do accept applications prior to the beginning of the financial year for those events that happen sort of pretty much straight off. So you have already approved out of your annual pot grants to cricket and to Blossom Festival. In this round, we've had 4 applications. The Central Otago AMP show, again for free children's entertainment, they've asked for $6,000. Prospector Mountain Bike event, they've asked for $7,250. And then we've got the Alexandra Musical Society for their upcoming show, Mamma Mia. Now, they have made two separate applications. One was made to community grant and the other to promotions. When Rebecca and I reviewed those, we felt that as applications, they did sit best within the promotions grant. So we've included them both in this for the two different elements that they've applied for. One being the rights and royalties fees and the other being for marketing and promotion of the event. So the total of all those applications is $18,903 and some cents. I'm not as good as Rebecca at the cents. 30 cents. You have a total of $7,250 to approve in this funding round to remain within budget, and that will mean that if we spend that full amount, there is nothing for the second round in March next year. Just make a comment that what I've done when assessing the grants is actually taken into account that limited amount of funding and looked at those projects that did have a longer lead time as far as the ability to amplify the grant expenditure. Your AMP show, they're a regular applicant. Last year they received $3,000 for their 65th show. For a few years now, we've been suggesting that they should be looking to try and bring that show to bring those free children's entertainment costs to a self-sustaining model. My recommendation is to bring back on the figure that they were to approve a grant, but to bring back on what they were previously approved. Prospector Mountain Bike event, that's an event that really fits nicely with Central Otago's offering as a great cycle destination. It's also good for a value over volume model. It's a multi-day event. It brings people in for several days as opposed to a one-off. So it's got some potential there. And they're looking at a much wider catchment for that event. So they're looking to reach into Australia. So that's what they're seeking funding for. The Musical Society, I have not seen come through to Vincent Community Board for a promotions fund previously. We did look back and I think there may be some applications way back in the past. Unfortunately, Pam, who's been brought on to do their grant applications, is travelling today, so she too couldn't present to the board. As I've mentioned, there's the two applications, and my recommendation in this instance is to decline given the short lead time for that event. It's imminent. It begins on the 23rd of September. A lot of those costs have already been incurred. Looking at their financial records, they do have some reserves that could see them through, but I also suggest that they look to, if they're looking for funding for these types of things, that they make an application in the next funding round for their 2024 event. That's along the lead.
Thank you. Has anybody got any questions for Rebecca or Helen?
I've got a couple of questions. So if I read that right, that leaves us, if we approve what's recommended, are we looking $250 for the second round?
Yep.
Right. So what is your experience in terms of volume of applications, first round, second round? Is it consistent with the second round?
I think we have to be a little bit cautious with regards to the last couple of years, just because there's been quite a significant impact from COVID, and that's really affected on promotional activities. Most will come in this round. What we tend to see in the next round is those applications looking for the following year. So if we look at March, this last March round, we only received the two applications, one from Blossom Festival and one from Otago Cricket.
So how do we evaluate this stuff we've done for a long time compared to something that's relatively new?
I think it comes down to what's their ability to stand alone and actually cover those costs, and what the potential is of the new project that's coming in, whether there is something that you would like to see happen and grow and get better.
Yeah, because that's another question, I guess, is about how do we ascertain what's going to stand out, like Prospect is going to put to international kind of, which would kind of, and
It should ultimately stand alone. And this would be the
second,
third, I think, application. And in my world, I would see that as being the line in the sand.
what, 3 years?
Yeah.
Stand up and go.
Yeah.
Presumably in evaluating any of the promotions grants applications, the actual lead time would be one factor. So that the fact that the by fund is through to next year, but the musical society is going to happen with us, the next 4 weeks. Would that be a factor against the musical society?
Sadly,
In terms
yes.
of community promotions, sorry. Right.
Sadly, yes. I mean, there's definitely some value, there's some precedents. The board has funded the Waiata Theatre Company previously. It's just that I think the timing of this is really challenging. I mean, we've all, Rebecca and I had this week actually had contact with another applicant who would dearly like to have had an application into this funding round and had missed it. But we've had to say to them, look, we're really sorry. It's ultimately, we don't think there'll be any funding available even to do a special circumstances application. So it's a challenge because I think for this board, you are tight on grant funding for promotions.
Is there an opportunity to do a bit more objective, like a scorecard that gives like those community outcomes or the full well-being we've got? Is there an opportunity to kind of, I don't know, because you're so diverse.
Elected members have asked for discretion, and so that's what you have. So the grants policy, those conversations were discussed when the grants policy was formulated, and elected members requested that the most discretion possible was given to them, and that's what you have.
Yeah, so it's not going to be an obligation, but it's a little more objective than.
In the past,
They've done that in the past, and there was some value in it. It's again, it becomes very subjective because I mean,
it's subjective.
Yes.
I could have a different opinion than what you have said.
That's why I asked the question.
And that's why I'm a trustee in another grant making body, and so I have the picture of both sides of the table.
Yeah.
And often you think that a matrix would be helpful, but then it does. Because it is at the end of the day quite subjective, and I think there will be a discussion in the next 12 months about the grants policy and what conditions you'd like to see in that to tighten it up or change it or add some emphasis in a certain direction. And so that might be an opportunity to explore that a little further. But it's chicken and egg.
More art and science.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not easy.
Okay. Any other questions? Well, would you like to go through them one by one? And make any decisions? Do you want to discuss each application?
Sure.
Let's go back to, so I'm just going back and forth between the different pages. So recommendations are that we receive the report and accept the level of significance and then decide the grant to be allocated to the applicants of the community information grants. Would you like to discuss the figures on those grants?
Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, so first up we have the museum. All of the comments there in relation to the grant is heard from ADMI. The amount requested is $167,000. I think it's accepted that it's unlikely to be that. And the recommended amount is $82,000, which is the same amount that they received last year for their ongoing operations. Does anybody have any questions or comments around that figure, or is anybody happy to suggest that there's the figure that they didn't receive?
Happy? Oh, maybe.
Cool.
Well, that's maybe, yeah.
Moving on to Alexandra and District's Youth Trust, which is on page. So many pages. I think we're on page 51 on the separate. And I thought there was a comment somewhere that I had seen on a commercial lease with an external provider, but was there a comment in there around whether or not there was a council facility? A council building?
They would
I'll
like
make
to
that up.
be in one.
They would like to be in one. Do we have any? Don't recognise they've signed a lease for 2 years, but
Yeah,
is that a possibility?
Have a look at it. Take my have a look at it for them.
There's been an ongoing conversation for years.
Yeah.
Hasn't really been anything available.
Yeah, I can't think of anything that's coming up.
Maybe we should just keep that in mind. Yeah. So the amount requested from Alexandra District's Youth Trust is $13,000 to cover the lease. The recommended amount based on the figure from last year, recognising that the pot has not been increased, is $6,000. Would anybody like to either suggest that that is the amount they receive or propose a different?
I'm happy with that amount.
Okay, thanks, Dan. Alexandra District Pipe Band, financial assistance with full hire costs. We no idea what page we're looking at.
Stop.
If you go back to page number 1, to check what page we're going to. 3, so it is on page 82. And then after that, we're going to
Can I just suggest something? Let's get that running on. It's not.
Trust. The Pipe Band has requested $3,000. Previously, they'd received $2,500 covering their haul hire costs. The recommendation is for $2,500 for this round. Does anybody have any comments on that or would like to suggest that that is the money that they received? Thanks, Jim.
I don't know.
101, David. Dunstan Kahuyako Community of Learning for transportation costs to a Festival of the Arts event. Any comments on that?
I must confess, I felt quite uneasy reading the application in the first place, and I think the recommendation of defining a grant is the appropriate thing.
I disagree. So I think that it meets the criteria of cultural and social wellbeing and the community. And I think at the end of the day, yes, if it can make in the future, it doesn't mean it would have to be accepted. Just think on this occasion, I think we should approve it.
Yeah, I'm probably more with Roger. I just think it's going to open up ways, you know, stuff. I hear 2 sponsorship committees in the sporting world. But for something like that, we would go out and get sponsorship ourselves without coming to the community board. So I'm agreeing with what's recommended, that it's not funded.
Yeah, I think we're going into an area that looks like it's a fringe curriculum kind of, I don't know. I want to be the hospital, the ambulance for the education department.
I see both sides and I agree with Jaden that a lot of it does fit with our well-beings. Would anybody have any appetite to recognise that there's a difference between parents travelling from Kilburn and parents travelling from Clyde? as the ability to provide that service. And could that be a possibility that we're separating out the money for Goulburn and
You could approve it subject to it being applied for whatever criteria you'd like.
Right. Because I think there is a lot to be said for that wellbeing aspect of children being able to participate in something like that, recognising that it'd be really great if Florence School could ride their bike to whatever, but as opposed to taking a piece of their house.
And something to say that next year the schools won't look at this and go, okay, they've given us a chance here, but we need to make sure that we've got this in our budgets for next year if we're going to move forward with this. That's kind of my line of thinking. Just sort of make it quite clear to them that this could potentially be a one-off situation. So you need to be budgeting a bit better for next year and moving forward with what you're doing.
So the cost for Home Coast Schools is $995 and for Goulburn $715.
So that's 1710.
1719.
Yeah, in fact, we did differentiate between Clyde, Second Goes Away, small school and Goulburn.
Yeah, for those rural communities.
Did you say 1710?
Yeah.
Is it more comfortable with that one?
So,
That's one that I've already
yeah,
done.
it's not comfortable with that.
Well, it's not a big difference really, is it?
No, it's not really.
I'm still going with a recommend that no funding, and likewise. You're talking now 1,700 compared to 2,600, so
Do you, that's fine. Do either of you want to make a recommendation that the money is provided for the Goulburn School and Omako School at 1,710, but on the provision that this is a one-off type thing?
Yeah, okay, I'll support that.
Yeah, I'm happy to support that as well. So the recommendation will be that the Dunstan Kahuiaka receives $1,710 to be spent on transporting students from Goulburn and Omako School, but that it should be fed back to them that this is a one-off and that in future they shouldn't anticipate to receive funding for this type of event.
That's a majority.
Just to clear it up. Yeah.
Can do. I think we've kind of got that so far anyway, don't we? We
Sweet.
have that, yeah. And then the final one, this community grants is the Upcycles Charitable Trust looking for $2,000 to purchase equipment. Any discussion on that?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
What you might?
I think to me, it looks like it was for the service club more than us. And I just note in the photos, the applications for new gear, which there seems to be a bit in the photo, and I don't know whether it's different gear, whether it's specific, this gear specific to a project compared to his personal gear. It's great cause, passionate, he's the right person for the job, but I'm not sure that's probably our best application of funds.
yeah, I'm with Tony on that one too.
Do you have any comments on that?
No, just thinking.
I think it was a good initiative.
Yeah.
And I would like to have seen it supported. I've seen it was the same sort of model, I don't know, in Dunedin, which seemed to would be working very well. So I think giving someone a help at the beginning of such a venture would be well worthwhile.
You can't really see that versus like the Oaks Lions Club or Rotary, or do you see our role versus the service club for funding that? Because you're right, it's a great initiative. And also said there's a lot of central government funding for this type of initiative too. I know Chris would be across a bit of that, because he talks about bike reading, which is centrally funded.
Is there any update on where the charitable status is at this point?
I'm quite happy to support it too. I really like what they're doing. I think it does meet the requirements on the condition that they get the charitable status.
Because I would support that, yeah.
Can we, this application is supported on the basis of a charitable status being approved. Could we anticipate a report back at the end of the period on the outcomes?
There would just be a status report, so you'll get a, in your status reports that are part of governance, it will tell you, it will keep a running track of what grants have been paid and which ones haven't.
Yeah.
And those that haven't, why they haven't, and so it will be waiting for charitable status to be approved. And then once they get paid the grant, then there'll be an accountability report.
And we have done that before with Winter Stelling.
And we've done it, like there's a couple of the Cromwell books that are ticking over for quite a while.
On the basis that the grant is given conditional on charitable status being approved, and that we would receive an accountability report at the end of the 12 months. Is that when it would come back, Rebecca?
So for that size grant, they don't come in front of the board, they get processed by staff and you get told that
Yeah.
it's done, but
Yeah.
they're there if anybody ever wants to see them.
Yeah.
So it's 12 months from payment of grant, because it could be like 12 months for the charity status.
How would people feel about that?
I don't think they
Would you
will,
like
I
to amend
think.
the amount and. More successful choice.
What do you think in amounts? I'm following your lead on this one.
There was no rationale between behind the 2,000, it was art more than science. And it was indication of a contribution rather than fully funded.
Yeah,
So that's all that was behind that figure.
and do we feel like the contribution should be $2,000 or $1,000 or $1,500 or the full amount? Happy to support it, but.
Maybe $1,000 to show us important person.
Yeah.
$1,000.
$1,000 to show a support for the project and base contingent on receiving charitable status.
So can we pull up the grant resolution now, please, Sarah?
Yeah.
Just before we come to, just so we can make sure we've got all those.
Right, so we've got $82,000, 89 is supported, $6,000 for the Alexandra District Youth Trust, $9,000 to the Alexandra Pipe Band, $1,710 to the Dunstan Family Arco, and $1,000 to Upcycles Charitable Trust, on the condition that they get charitable status approved. Just get that in, and that there is a report. Maybe if we.
I don't think you need that second part of the resolution, because that's a criteria for all grants.
Perfect.
So on the condition that they get charitable,
It's just that they receive charitable
yeah,
status
subject to charitable status being
approved.
achieved. Being achieved. Yeah. Brilliant, thank you. And you may want to take, you guys, there's still some, not everybody is on the same page for one of those grants, and you may want to take that separate, but that's up to you.
Given that the recommendations cover off the promotions grants in there as well, we'll cover those and then we can vote on them all at the end if you like. Prospector mountain bike race have requested $7,250. The recommendation is for $5,500, and you can find the application on page 176. Right, this is a 3-day mountain biking event, attracting a wide pool of entries from Australia and further afield. Looking to bring specialist media to the event. In the event aligns with Central Otago Tourism Strategic Project of for Central. Does anybody have any discussion on that figure, whether it should be more, whether it should be less? Looking at it and recognising the pot is
Spotlight.
yes.
That's pretty exciting, yeah. I kind of like the concept of 3 years to get on your feet and set it through. Have you had any kind of rule around operational costs for this paid staff time kind of across all these things? There's quite a big number in here, which I know it's an international event, I know kind of the concept, but there's about 40,000, I think, of staff time in here.
Yeah, what they've asked to apply this funding to though is to their specific cost for PR elements of the project.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about the standing alone kind of.
Standing alone.
It's ability to stand alone.
It'd be generating enough income to cover those costs, and it's that would be no different to any commercial event, I would think.
Okay, so are people reasonably comfortable with that at the moment?
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Central Otago and the Association on page 208. They have been for a number of years providing free children's entry and entertainment to the Central Otago AMP show. And they are looking for $6,000 from us to continue. The recommended amount is $1,500. Any discussion on that?
If we to approve that, can we just give them the other $250? Because that's what left, isn't it?
You know,
Does there see any point in having another funding round for $250? Looking at staff time,
For
especially.
promotions though, your next round will be for the following financial
Okay.
year. So I agree, however, you will have a next round because it will be for the
Yeah.
following year.
So when will the next, so the promotion, because that's one thing that is recommended that we feed back to the Alexandra Musical Society is that they need to apply in advance. Will there be money in the pot for them to apply in advance?
They'll be applying for the 24-25 year funding.
Okay.
And it will be
Because they're
subject to it.
and then subject to the approval of the annual plan or long-term plan.
There's a pot, big enough.
That's a conversation this afternoon.
I think might have decided to do a spiel on that, I know.
There's, as part of your long-term plan conversations, there'll be discussion about the size of the grant budgets. And it's, we also talk, like when we talk to Lady and mine, I explain, look, this is my recommendation and why I've given it. When you engage with council for long-term plan conversations, you might want to suggest that the grant pot is increased.
Is this flat line for quite a while? Yeah. Okay.
But it's competing demands on the ratepayer dollar.
Oh, no, just asking your opinion.
Okay, so there's a recommendation or suggestion from Jaden that the amount provided to Central Otago AMP Society is $1,750, which would then be the sum total of the $7,250 available in the pot. Which would mean that Alexandra Musical Society was not successful in their application for the Mamma Mia production, recognising that that production is well underway and the aspects that they have applied for, which mostly revolve around marketing, advertising, and the royalties, are now somewhat retrospective.
Did they get their last grant? I think there was one they were waiting to hear from. But they got two big grants. And there was a $17,000 one, I think there was pending one
So what was that with regard to?
with the musical society.
Must have been to an external. agency, I do believe they may have a grant application into creative communities. But
Yeah.
I wasn't that sort of figure.
Okay.
Was that in their application? I missed that. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
The other organisation that Ali was talked about was the St Bethan's Pet. So they didn't get their application in, but we would have explored if you had any money, we would have explored trying to bring something in between rounds. But we suggested to them, look, if you're invigorating this event, then come into that March round for the following financial year. And that will be the same as for these guys, because they'll know, these guys should know in March what production we're gonna do or hope to do.
Yeah.
Is the comfortable with that, and that the feedback to Mamma Mia or to Alexandra Musical Societies will be that although unsuccessful in this round, they could hope to apply for the March round for the following year?
Just need to change the figure in H. So
So everyone, would you like us to vote on each one individually, or would you like us to?
No. Does anyone want to take any of them separately?
So the recommendations are that the Vincent Community Board receives the report and accepts the level of significance, and then allocates the money from as per B through to H, based on the discussions and indications we've had. Would anybody like to move those recommendations? Thank you, Roger. Seconded, Di. Thank you. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you very much for your hard work, and there may well be a significant conversation around how much money is in the pot and you can see this happening.
Yes.
Funded. And Andy is entirely has here to.
This afternoon.
I just want to thank everyone as well. We'll keep that museum open for another year.
Wonderful, thank you for it.
Thanks.
Right, we are now, so, moving to item number 23.6.3 on page 23 of the actual agenda, the applications. Thinking about the Power Act. Gordon, welcome.
Thank you. So, yeah, this report, just an information report that we, as the board will know, there's significant power outlets through Pioneer Park, sort of between Central Stories and the playground area. And a report we received earlier in the year indicated that we needed to upgrade that power because one, it didn't have enough grunt in it, and two, it didn't meet some standards in some areas. So we got that work, which started last week. So there you'll see them take some trenches and working on upgrading that power. And this is just a information report that we're going to fund it out of depreciation reserve 2463 to a value of 9 grand, and it'll be finished before the Blossom Festival, so they don't have to generators, etc. So that's the plan. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I see they have started the work and they're doing quite a tidy job of fixing it up as they go, so.
Yeah, we're going up 3 a bit weeks to go.
Yeah.
The Blossom Festival. Yeah.
Marvellous. Did anybody have any questions on the matter report from board? In that case, I'm happy to move that we receive the report. Someone's happy to speak in that. Yes. Thank you, Tony. All those in favour?
Right.
Thanks. Carried. Very much. And now we are moving to item number 23.6.4, the flight holiday park fees, which is on page 24 5 of your agenda, this will be you again, I anticipate, will you?
Yeah, so as you know, we leased, or council leased the Clyde Holiday Park to Gary and Rosalind Ryan, and they've under their lease they can receive approval for increase of fees, which they have asked for a modest increase in fees for their cabins, cover increase in commodity costs. And just need approval through the board, and part of the lease says that the request should not be unreasonably withheld. Right in the report, so but haven't answered any questions. Oh, and the other thing is they've also supplied, as they are due to the annual guest nights for the last since the lease began, so you'll see those there, they've increased. There's been a few blips with COVID and things, but certainly this last 4 years had significant number of visitors staying the nights there, so that's great to see. So happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, I was also very pleased to see those annual guest nights increasing, and just hope that it is people holidaying and not people desperately finding a place to sleep for the night.
Yeah, mostly holidays.
Right.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Does anybody have any questions for Gordy on that one? The recommendations A through to C, we received a report and accept the level of significance, approve the Clyde Holiday Park fees for 23-24, and receive the annual guest nights data provided in the report. Noting that the only fee that is increasing is the cost of staying in a cabin that the non-powered sites and additional child and adults fees remain the same. Somebody happy to move for this? Thank you, Di. Second to Tony. All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thanks, Gordy. And we are now up to page 29 for the interim business financial report for the period ending 30 June. Welcome, Susan.
Well, actually, it's Donna.
No, it's just.
Wasn't sure where you guys were at, so just.
Sure thing. Can we just pause for 2 minutes and just? Yep. So thank you, Donna. You can catch your breath.
I take it to busy, are we anticipating?
so the financial figures might change since this report has been published. And we'll have more detail on that for the Audit and Risk Committee in September. So at present, the 30th of June finished with a favourable operating variance of 969,000 against the revised budget. The revenue has a favourable variance of 2.8 million. The same trends are continuing through for revenue, so it includes Dunstan Park land sales. There are 5 sections remaining unsold as at 30 June. User fees and other income continues to be unfavourable, and we've got the camp fees from the Clyde Recreation Reserve in there, and we also have the GST error at the swimming pools, and there's also lower than expected admissions and swim school income. Grants and subsidies are favourable by 518k, so there's $125,000 for MB funding for the Alexandra River Park, which will be carried over into the next financial year to go with the expenditure, along with the 94,000 received for Better Off funding for the Alexandra Pool Liner project, and there is also 298,000 received from the lotteries for the Alexandra Community Centre. So they will all be carried forward to the next financial year to align with the capital expenditure on those projects. The expenditure continues as an unfavourable variance of 1.8 million. So we've got the cost of land sales going through for Dunstan Park, and I think that is the main driver. Sorry, I just want to write that down. It is the main driver. I'm not too sure why there is such a difference in the revised budget against the actuals. But I believe it might just due to the timing of the costs or the difference in the actual land sales against the costs. So I think the margin is still the same between the two. Staff costs are higher than budget. This is in the Alexandra Pool, the Property General and the Omakau Recreation Reserve. Property staff budgets is sitting in the district-wide budget area, so it washes out at the end of the year through an overhead journal process. The Omakau Recreation Reserve overspend is just due to where it's actually sitting, the costs, but of course that isn't unfunded and it balances out at the end of the year with other budget underspends. So capital expenditure has a favourable variance of 1.5 million. Parks and Reserves has a favourable variance of 943. So this is relating to the Alexandra River projects, the Omakau Recreation Reserve Playground, which is on hold at the moment, as well as the Molyneux Park Scooter Park project. These will all be carried forward to the next financial year. Property has a favourable variance of 653,000, with the projects including the Alexandra Memorial Theatre, the Clyde Community Centre and the Alexandra Library projects, which will also be carried forward through to the next financial year. Are there any questions?
I just had one, and that was on page 31. Talks about the fuel and energy favourable variance, and that was because electricity was lower than expected at the Alexandra Pool, which seems unusual unless it is because people actually are noticing that the pool is colder than normal. What's your complaint on here?
I could probably jump in on that. So we do have a meter in now to understand the heat transfer from the isom line into the pool, and it looks like it is providing benefit, and so we are coming up on understanding probably 6 months of that. And so that we certainly get the board across once we do have that report, but it looks like it is providing us some value through that heat exchange.
Yeah. Right.
Just how much it is, we'll
Okay. We'll watch this space.
Yeah.
Yay. Any other questions for Donna or Susan? In that case, is someone happy that the report be received? Thanks, Tony. Seconded Roger. All those in favour?
Yeah.
Against? Carried. Thank you very much. Can we move momentarily back to the promotions and grants, because one of the recommendations was hidden at the bottom of the page, and we actually need to move A to I rather than A to H. I was the declining application and the Alexandra Musical Society. The people who moved and seconded the last recommendations, happy to move those amendments, that amendment?
Yeah, sure.
Yep, wonderful. All those in favour? Aye. Yes. Carried. Thank you. On to the mayor's report, and he's not here, so doing the chair's report. And I will send it to you, Sarah. I've made some notes so that you don't have to type them all, because it has been a very busy period since the 12th of June. Quite a lot has happened since then, so I'm just going to gloss over some and highlight others. So we've had a number of tours up at the half mile, which has been great, seeing the progress that's coming along up there. And also there was someone who posted online a really good photo of the Alexandra sign. There's no pine trees behind it, just a beautiful sunrise, which is going to be pretty cool. I attended the Lake Dunstan water supply opening on the 22nd of June, which has been a long time coming for Vincent people and Alexandra and Clyde, and that was really exciting to see that coming to fruition, and hopefully everybody's noticing a lot less scunge in their water kettles. I met in July with two of the hopefuls for the LGNZ president, including who turned out to be the eventual president of LGNZ, Sam Broughton, who is going to be outstanding. He's super positive, super passionate, just a really great guy, and I think he'll do a lot to move LGNZ forward in that space. On the 26th and 28th of July, I attended the LGNZ conference in Otautahi, Christchurch with me and Tim, which was probably the best conference I've ever been to. There were loads of really interesting speaking slots that you could go to. They had excellent presenters. The highlights for me were Wales's first Future Generations Minister, who came along and spoke about her role. And one of the things that she talked about was the quote around, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together, which I think is really pertinent for this space at the moment. I listened to an excellent presentation from Willis Bond, who's the company that's in charge of the Tauranga City Centre revamp with all their amazing new civic buildings, and there are some really cool aspects coming out of that. So if you're planning to go to Tauranga anytime soon, hopefully there's some neat new buildings we can have a look at. And I also went to a Sport New Zealand presentation on play and the decline in play for kids in New Zealand as a whole. And there were some really great opportunities to look at how we look at play, because I think there was that challenge too, and Gordy will be able to fill us in more of that. Here's a playground, here's a slide, you slide on the slide, you swing on the swing. And there was a really cool story from one of the Christchurch people around what seems like a really dangerous example, but they had a contractor doing some work on a stormwater outlet upgrade. And as part of that work, they were doing a lot of digging and putting in new pipes. And one of the contractors one day saw in the mud some little footprints and thought, that's a bit weird. But instead of just covering over them and putting up a big fence that they were going to put up, he actually went to the play specialist that Christchurch City Council said and said, oh, we're doing the stormwater upgrade and I found these footprints. I think there might be kids playing down there. And so what they did is, instead of fence it off and make it a no-go zone, they made it more accessible, and there were some steps. And he drove past a couple of weeks later and saw that there were actually some community kids playing down in this area in their local kind of park. Obviously kids love playing near water, and if we could make it a wee bit safer for them, then those opportunities for that imaginative play, I think, are really cool. Not suggesting that all our kids go around and play in stormwater drains, but recognising that it doesn't have to be a playground for kids to want to enjoy the space. And I guess when we look at our play strategies going forward, especially what might happen with the playground at Pioneer Park and also at Oako Reserve, that there might be opportunities to do some really innovative things. On the 1st of August, I had an interesting session with a couple of staff members from here talking to the Year 13 kids at Dunstan High School about civics and voting and how they could want to get enthusiastic about politics type things. It was very well received, possibly just because I took a lot of chocolate and lollies, but they were quite engaged and we did get some really great questions. And I actually then had a follow-up question from a parent around their ability to vote as new citizens, previous permanent residents, and not being in town on voting day. And they heard from their daughter that I'd given a talk about voting at school, and they actually had a question, which was great. It's neat that people were, obviously the kids are going home to talk to their parents about it too.
Yeah, so just to help me, the bill for local government age under 16 has had a first reading, or is it further than that?
I think it has heard only first. It looks like it was getting through, but I'm not going to find it on the track of those.
I think it was just at first.
And then I went to a few other meetings and groups that I also through to you, Sarah, including a councillor catch up with a few of the CNC ORC councillors, which was really good. And then on the 24th of August, Martin and I went to we got an invite to a movie premiere at Alex Primary School, where they had created a 16-minute video on what makes Alexandria unique. And you never told me.
No.
It was really cool. They rolled out a red carpet and they had popcorn, and I took my kids along, and it was just a really neat insight. And I think it could overwhelmingly say that what the kids love about this town is the connection to community and the sense of feeling like they belong to this location as well, which is really cool. And I also attended ice skating with Kindy, school cross country, skiing with my kids, had a 5th birthday and an annual stay for a week. So all I know is it's like a June. And it's my report. I think that's really serious.
Quick question, what does tone at the local government conference, is it a bit more cohesive than it was 12 months ago?
Significantly so. Yeah, people were, I don't know if it was just because we're in Christchurch and the weather was fabulous and the venue was awesome, whereas last time in Palmerston North it rained the advice. Yeah, but people were, despite recognising that we had some mayors and cities there from Hawke's Bay and some of those other areas, farmers that have been really hit and are really struggling, there was a feeling of a line being ruled under some things and moving forward with a bit more positivity, even though there's still so much uncertainty in the space. I think there seems to be some enthusiasm to drive some changes for local government and that future for local government reform and what that might look like. And people feeling enthusiastic about the sector driving that instead of it coming down from above. But the variety of the workshops that they had for people to attend, the variety of the guest speakers that they had come along was all really positive, except for the one lady that talked about AI, who terrified the Jesus out of everybody leaving the business breakfast worried for the future, I think. But it was just really well run, well organised, and Christchurch is well and truly open for business, and if anybody would like a recommendation for a restaurant, I have several.
The feelings of confidence they can influence local government reform from the bottom up rather than from the top down.
Yeah, I think there seems to be that recognition that if we want to see changes, we will need to drive them and the enthusiasm to do that.
Okay.
Yes. There you go, first reading. Set on the 20th of August, so yes, that was the first reading for the lower and voting age for local body election.
So that will get through before October.
No.
No.
So the next government, I should have known it. I watched it on TV.
It's just last week.
Perfect, we now move to the members' reports. Roger. Sorry, someone, I'm here to move them. There's the agenda, second that, all those in favour? Aye, against, carried. Thank you, and Rogers.
Right, my report for a period of 3 months. So this is what some of the things, the selection of things I've done. Attended a large number of meetings. As a representative of the VCB, I've attended 3 meetings of the Alexandra District Museum Board. I visited the half mile, with David to, observe progress when they were felling trees. Attended the AGM of the Alexandra Community House. I've chaired 2 meetings of the Creative Writers Circle. I've had 2 meetings with Anna Robinson to discuss potential for a reuse shop in the absence of waste busters. So that's sort of a still a blank space. We don't know what way that might go. I've attended 2 meetings plus a workshop plus the AGM of the Central Otago District Arts Trust. Attended education sessions, including astrophotography at Central Stories. That was organised by Andy Davey. Some actually splendid sessions there, and they had the dome from on loan from the Otago Museum in Dunedin. Attended the opening of the arts exhibition by Mark Blake. It's held at Central Stories. Attended a REAP planning day. Attended a REAP board meeting. I was involved in music performances in Alexandra and Monaco. This was just this last weekend, Saturday and Sunday. Saturday was in the foyer of the Central Stories. Sunday was across in Monaco. In both cases, it was a near capacity audience, so that was really encouraging. And let's note that I was saddened by the death of Malcolm McPherson, former mayor and a friend of Central Stories Museum in Monaco.
Big project. Done.
Okay, Balance College, just keeping in touch with them. We've got a few building issues with our mud bricks and some windows and things, but we're working through that with some local people and the family. Living up on Bridge Hill, I visit the half mile works regularly and it looks fantastic. A lot of my neighbours think so too. Just a couple of things with the Vincent community. Some of you might not realise, but our little rugby club won the premiership this year, which was against all odds, and quite huge. I've never ever seen so much support from our community. Molyneux Park just full, was just like going to a cricket game. It was just a fantastic thing. I think our last 4 or 5 home games were full. And even going to the final, we had literally hundreds of people go to Wanaka to support us. So it was a fantastic thing, and in a lot of good ways you get to talk to the club rooms having a few beers. And a lot of people come and talk to you about the Vincent community, and I'd rather talk about the rugby. That was really good. And the good news, and with my golf hat on, in the next 8 months, once again we've got thousands of people coming to our community to biking and coming to play golf, so it should be just really, really good for the hoteliers and cafes and restaurants. So last year was really busy, and we're going to be busier this year, so it's a great thing for the community. So it's about me.
Wonderful. Thanks, Dan. Okay.
Well, Peter Rogers dance card, mine's pretty slow. A couple of weeks where I was offline for a while. Yeah, I thought it was a great result for our street. And I think there's a bit of ripple down there, hopefully for activity around the place, drag a whole bunch of kids in. Had a couple of Blossom Festival meetings on behalf of VCB. Looks pretty tidy, I think, in most areas. The downside risk if we have a punk weather event, probably about 10k is the biggest risk they've got. So that's probably manageable with where they're at, and everything else seems to be coming in to line, I think, pretty well. Went to the New Zealand Mariki night sky, which was amazing. Negotiations at the kitchen table at home that will be by one of the training offer. That is spectacular. Yeah, really good. Really good.
Excellent. Thank you very much. David.
Cool, so just some highlights from the last 3 months. So I attended the new water treatment plant opening in June, so that's quite exciting to see. Attended a walk around at the Half Mile Reserve with staff and members of the High House Trust. It's looking really good up there. Met with Trudy Anderson around the new national policy on biodiversity. It's had a really great chat about that, and it's good to see that this community is already headed in that direction. I went to the annual hui of Community Works Aotearoa in Wellington, which is the umbrella organisation for the Alexandra Council of Social Services, and there were a lot of conversations and excitement around NGOs and the social services sector working with local government following whatever the reforms look like. Met with the St Athens Residents Association, I think it was June, to discuss their plans for their gala fee for their Queen event next year. I've been to a few different events at Central Stories, so it's really cool to see all the work that they're doing there. Wrote an article that Central App put up, thank you for that, around the importance of young people standing up against climate change, and have been communicating with the Make It 16 group, who have been advocating to lower the voting age to 16. So I'll hopefully have a bit more to say on that in the weeks to come. And that's me.
Thank you very much. Happy to move that we receive the members' reports, and Vincent, happy to second that. All those in favour? Thank you, carried. Now we move to page 38 for the government report. Status reports. Does anybody have any questions on any of those status reports? You were talking about one this morning, weren't you?
It's probably just written.
Covered off the whole. Did you hear anything back on it yet?
Yes, they have a book for the month, the musical days, and the upgrade is only for the hall part, so the theatre, they're fine. Yeah. Good check there.
There was one that we were wondering if it could be closed or look at it. I feel like this has come up previously. That's the Valence Cottage Reserve Biodiversity Border Planting, which was talking about page 41, agreeing to a memorandum of understanding between the council and the Alexandra Garden Club for the establishment of a biodiversity border at the Valence Cottage Reserve. Now, we have heard anecdotally that the Garden Club are no longer interested in that project, and we can get confirmation from them that that's the case, and that was not enough there. Cool.
I can add that, yes, we do not understand the value, so.
Yeah.
Soon at some time.
Okay.
Close up for the next one.
Perfect, thank you. The next meeting is 17th of October 2023. And we now move to resolution to exclude the public for the reasons outlined on page 56. Thank you very much for coming along today. Lovely to see you. Sorry, James, I'll move it, James will second it. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Now, we have got a bit of things to